Welcome to Grandpa Hill's True Stories. In this story, I am going to talk about a time when Mary Lee saved the day. She has a whole bunch of things that she's done where she has saved the day. Unfortunately, she also has epilepsy, and she often doesn't remember how she saved the day. And my part as a caregiver, it's starting to rain outside, as a caregiver and as husband, and very happy and proud with my wife, who's sitting right next to me, along with my grandson that's here, David. I'm telling a story to David, and I'm also reminding Mary Lee. So this story took place back in the early 1980s. We had like 2 or 3 children and not a lot of money. We didn't have savings. We didn't have, we had a big house payment, and we got in a car wreck, which was happened in Michigan, and at that time we lived in Ohio. And I'd been driving along, and I made a legal but risky move with the car, and we got rear-ended. So when we got back to Ohio and we made an insurance claim, it was explained to us that in the state of Michigan, it's a no-fault state. And in a no-fault state, we're not going to be covered. Whether it was our fault or not, we're not going to be covered. We're responsible for our car, and we cannot afford to replace our car. I didn't think this was right, and when I don't think something's right, and I get ready to call the insurance company, it usually doesn't end up very well because I get very upset. So at that point, we'd just been married a few years, I had gotten to the point where it was very, just something I would do, is even though Mary didn't know the discussion, she didn't know the rules, she didn't know the laws, she didn't know the people she was going to talk to, I would give her the phone and ask her to take care of it. So in this case, that's what she did. I had already been told no, and rather than deal with it with anger or force or anything else, I give the phone to Mary and I go to work. And by the time I get home in the afternoon, I am informed by Mary that there will be a man coming to our house with a check to pay for our coverages. And I'm going like, okay, you really didn't put me to shame, but I expected her to make progress, but not like that. So I asked her, what happened? How did you do this? What did you say to them to convince them to do this? And she just said that she had talked to him, and it was a real nice, gentle conversation about how you thought that it should be covered and they thought it shouldn't be covered. And I wanted to know, how do people normally resolve these things? And they said, well, the only way we know that you would resolve it is you'd have to take it up with the state insurance commissioner, which is somebody high up, some state employee, top of the line for governing all the insurance companies in the whole state. So Mary Lee got it in her mind that she would call the commissioner and talk to the commissioner. And when she talked to the commissioner, and the commissioner heard the story, or maybe it was the commissioner's secretary, but from what she could remember, and what I remember, she was actually talking to the commissioner. And then when she was done with the conversation, she just looked it up. She got into this insurance thing in the phone. We had phone books back then, no cell phones or anything. Mm-hmm. And she's looking it up, and it says there in the little section of the white pages under government says insurance and commissioner, and she calls it, and it happens to be the right commissioner or whatever, and she has that conversation, and then they called the insurance carrier, which was State Farm, which we still have State Farm. We settled it just fine, but they called it State Farm and explained to them that yes, we were supposed to be covered, whether we were in the no-fault state or not, because the insurance we bought would cover our accidents wherever they were. We were in the state of Ohio. They would cover us anywhere in the country, and even in Canada or wherever we were. And that was what the law was. And in fact, they needed to make restitution on the claim because, that's something you just should have known, that's what the case was. So it didn't look too good for State Farm. State Farm decided to make it look better, and there they were at the door. They knocked on the door, and we opened up the screen door, and they presented the check. And I don't remember if it was $500 or $800 and $900, but it was enough for us to go to work on getting another car. I mean, we didn't need to get another car, but it would pay for the damages because the car was still drivable. So that's my story. She saved the day, and she did a lot better. She did a lot better than I would. And it took many, many years before I could get to the point where I could talk to people decently the way that she talked to people just naturally, because she's used to talking to more people. You know how she stops and talks to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this is so this is the.
We were just walking down the hill.
Yeah, so that's how she saved the day that time back in the early 1980s.